Oh, and one more thing I'll say before I pass it over to Frankie is, it's not like a traditional meeting where there's a speaker and then someone shares back for 4 minutes, the next person. What we find is sharing back for a couple of minutes keeps the workshop rolling, keeps the questions coming, keeps us focused on where we need to be. So Frankie, with that, I will pass it over to you. And you can unmute, I think.
That's it. Can you hear me?
We can.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks everyone for being here. Frankie, I'm an addict. Thanks, Paul, for the introduction. As some of you are who have attended on a regular basis, you know, I see Joe and I see the other Joe and Matt, who's on the committee, and Margaret, and you guys who have been coming for quite some time. Even Vincent, the coffee maker, I've seen him quite a few weeks. It's lovely to see you guys. Sorry if I missed anyone. Paul was saying the other day what we're going to do, and I think we've already done Why Are We Here? And it's my favourite joke, you know, why are we here? Ask my parents, but I don't think they'd quite remember. But I try and do these workshops, and I've done quite a few over time, and it's about making it fun. Paul also gave a clue. If you ever want to take an NA meeting hostage, or you ever want to take a Zoom meeting hostage, ask a question. Because what happens is all the ego from the people who's been around for a while, they all want to come out and give you the answer or their version of the answer. I'm prone to that as well. So that's just a heads up if you feel like wanting to take it in a different direction. On Why We're Here, I just wanted to pick up on something because it's nice to be a bit spontaneous. Paul was, every time we do the workshop, we read The Disease of Addiction, which says we're powerless over our addiction. We're not substance specific, as Paul pointed out quite clearly. So here's a question for you. I like to do these questions that you can take away. There's no answer for this, but just to take away. If we're not substance specific, right? So if we're not powerless over marijuana or heroin or Subutex or alcohol, are we getting well, or are we just trying to be abstinent? Now take that away and think about that later, you know, because powerless over our addiction has nothing to do, you know, I don't buy a bag of addiction, do I? You know, I don't score a bag of addiction. I don't go and I'll get half a pint or a lager top of addiction, you know, so just a thought. So when we look back on these afterwards, I think sometimes I'll say some stupid stuff. But chapter 3, right? My basic text, 6th edition, chapter 3, Why Are We Here? If someone's got a book full of colours like this, my suggestion is go and buy a new book. It's distracting. It doesn't mean you're any good at, in fact, it means you're struggling. So if you've got a book, like, if you see an old timer with a book like this, yeah, they're struggling. Take it from me. Right. What I wanted to focus on was, there's a little reading that starts off. We'll do this a bit differently because we don't have a script. And Paul, pull me up if I talk too much. I'm sure you will, Paul.
What do you want me to screen share anything, Frankie?
Yeah, well,
I've got the last page here, I think, if you guys can see it. Is it that one?
I wanted to start from we were searching. So, which is actually page 15. It's the first paragraph.
Yeah.
We were searching.
We were complete failures. We were searching
for an answer.
Yeah.
Would you mind reading that down to 79, Paul?
Sure. Oh, look, it comes in 3 parts there.
Yeah, okay. Don't read the 3 parts yet.
Okay, fine. My name's Paul. I'm an addict. Okay, we were searching for an answer when we reached out and found Narcotics Anonymous. We came to our first NA meeting in defeat and didn't know what to expect. After sitting in a meeting or several meetings, we began to feel that people cared and were willing to help. Although our minds told us that we would never make it, the people in the fellowship gave us hope by insisting that we could recover. We found that no matter what our past thoughts or actions were, others had felt and done the same. Surrounded by fellow addicts, we realized that we were not alone anymore. Recovery is what happens in our meetings. Our lives are at stake. We found that by putting recovery first, this program works.
That'll be great, Paul. Really, I should have asked you to stop at number 75.
Okay.
But yeah, what I would like to have, can we have 4 people? It doesn't matter how much clean time you have or whether you don't have clean time, not fussed. Just 2 minutes each, have 4 people to share whether that's true for you. You know, I'll say it again so you get some refresh here. Thanks for reading that, Paul. We were searching for an answer when we reached out and found Narcotics Anonymous. Is that true? When we came to our first meeting in defeat and didn't know what to expect, after sitting in a meeting or several meetings, we began to feel that people cared and were willing to help. That's not my experience. Although our minds told us we would never make it, the people in the fellowship gave us hope by insisting we could recover. We found that no matter what our past thoughts or actions were, others had felt and done the same. Would 4 different people please come and share their, your real life experience of what it was like to come to Narcotics Anonymous, so that we know in general?
Brilliant. Okay. Cool? Yeah, Jericho boys, you've got your hand up. Let's get you unmuted. I'll just click. There you go.
Hello, my name's John. I'm an addict.
Hi, John.
Thanks for chairing the meeting, Paul, and thanks for your service, Frankie. We were searching for an answer. I'd been searching for an answer for a long time, psychiatrists, and when I was out in licensed probation officers, and I always went to them looking to find out what was wrong with us. I just thought I was a weak person. I even ended up in what's that called? A religious rehab. I was in there for 3 weeks, and I couldn't get that up. I was still a wee bit no well in the head, so I just couldn't get any up there and I got put out of there. I came in here, when I came in here, I always wanted to do was come off drugs. I didn't even know it was any. My family had put us on it. But when I came in here, I'd give myself a couple of months, and then it was NA based. I used to sit in the meetings, and it was like people talking a different language. I couldn't get any at all, and all the words they were using, even cutting about the house when people were using all the words, I just couldn't get it. It took me months before I understood what some of the words meant. I could see other people, some people that, well, I didn't know, but other people I knew in NA when they were coming on the Zoom meetings, and I knew them from outside. And I remember saying to myself a couple of times, I knew him, and I don't want to say, but I knew how off the wall he was out there, and to hear him talking on the meetings, I was like, well, if he can get it, surely I can get it. And as the meetings went on, I started to tune in more. And I used to take something out of every meeting, something different at every meeting. At first in the meetings I was falling asleep and all that because I just wasn't interested in them. But the more I get interested in the meetings, well, I love the fucking meetings now, to tell you the truth. That's what I live for. I live for the basic text now, and I live for the meetings. We started going outside meetings, and I'm getting a lot out of them as well.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
Right, all right, mate. No, all right.
Thanks so much. Let's have another 3 people.
Joe and Jericho, feel free to put your hand up again. Thank you, John, for sharing that.
Thank you, John. Just trying to keep it on the hop, that's all. Please come back in again.
Cheers, thank you. What it says for me though is when I did actually try to reach out for Narcotics Anonymous, I had to go to a treatment centre, you know what I mean? And it took me, it's like a jigsaw for me today. It's hard to understand, you know, what I am, what I did suffer from. Obviously, it's not the drugs anymore for me. It's what I'm suffering from on a daily basis, you know. And it's for me when I have been to meetings, and it has been feeling great sitting with other addicts. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm not alone. They've got the same addiction. Obviously, a different. Sorry, I said that wrong. Same. Obviously, we're all addicts, but we've got different experiences. So that's what I got to that anyway. Cheers.
Thank you, Joe. That's brilliant. Can we have another couple of hands on our first experience? Okay, so we've got Kyle. Is it? Are you coming in?
No, it's Ryan.
Ryan. Sorry, Ryan.
Ryan. I'm Ryan. I'm an addict. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like that bit. I'm kind of going to share on, you know, the negatives, you know, because some of these, you know, kind of, yeah, it weren't just as simple as that. You know, when I was searching to stop taking drugs, I wasn't aware of Narcotics Anonymous, like it's been shared. I wasn't aware of it. Again, I came through a treatment when I first came about. I came through a treatment centre, and I think that was the first time I kind of got introduced to it through H&I, and I just kind of thought it wasn't for me. I tried to do it therapeutic community way, you know, not through the steps, and you know, and I went to a few meetings, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, the thing that put me off it was God, really. You know, I kind of just, you know, and the work, you know, the people speaking about the steps and the work, I thought it were beyond me. And I stayed clean for a while, and yeah, and somebody said at the beginning, you know, after sitting in several meetings, we began to feel that people cared and were willing to help. That wasn't my experience. You know, I was pretty closed off. I was untrusting of people. You know, through being in addiction, I didn't come into a meeting brimming with trust, and I wasn't very honest. So, you know, it was difficult. I wasn't ready. You know, and I've always had a mind all my life that told me that I'd never make it. You know, I thought I was destined to be an addict for the rest of my life, and that was just the way it was going to be. But yeah, that is true. People in the fellowship give me hope by the shares. You know, I'd met a couple of people who I'd usually and I seen they were clean. You know, 10 years clean, and that absolutely blew me away. And I thought, wow, this guy used to be like me. Maybe I can get it as well. Yeah, surrounded by fellow addicts, we realised that we were not alone anymore. Yeah, that's kind of a bit of step 2 in there for me. Like, you know, when I did my step 2, I kind of started to realise that I wasn't on my own, and I started to trust in people, and I kind of do today. You know, and there's a great feeling in that, because, you know, I've been alone for a long time. But yeah, that's kind of what I got from that reading. So thank you.
Amazing, Ryan. Thank you so much for sharing. Brilliant. And let's take, guys, keep your hands up. Frankie might want to move on after we take a couple more, but we've got, I think, Lynn up next.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Frankie.
Couple of minutes, Lynn.
Can you hear me, Paul?
We can hear you. If you can give us a couple of minutes on this searching for an answer. Did you feel the love? Yeah.
All right, no probs. When I was searching for an answer, it was my brother that introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous in Bournemouth. Took me to a meeting, you know, and I went there still on a script, still whipping up. But I went there, and then I stayed for another week or whatever, and they sent me back home. And I just did not believe that that was what he done. Was sit in a room with a group full of people just talking about their life, really. But when eventually I did come back, I found that the fellowship did wrap herself around me. I got clean through the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous. That was like about 8.5 years ago. I've not stayed clean all that time. But I did feel the love. I did feel the Glasgow Fellowship wrapped herself around me and made sure that I felt welcome, because I was very untrustworthy, very much so full of fear, and didn't want to open up to anybody. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Thank you, Lynn. Brilliant. And Trish, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Paul. I didn't think it was me there. I got a fright. Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Frankie. We were searching for an answer when we reached out and found Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't really know what I was searching for. I just knew that my life was a mess. And I ended up in a psychiatric ward at 23 and somebody gave me a basic text. I come from outside Glasgow, so there was no meetings in my area. It was very annoying to me. I didn't even know it was a thing. And my first experience of coming to a meeting, I can't really remember much about it because I was under the influence. But once I came back when I was clean after rehab and stuff, again, because I came from outside the area, everybody seemed dead happy and confident and stuff like that. And I was just like the pure outsider that was nice. But very luckily, a couple of lassies did reach out to me and did show me the love and stuff like that. But then again, I kept myself very much in the outskirts as well. People have shared that, no, dead distrusting and stuff like that. And I was kind of chuckling when it said after sitting in a meeting or several meetings, we got to feel that people cared. My head was that loud for a long time. It told me that nobody cared and that I was never going to get this. And it took a long time for that to go. But having said all that, anytime I've come back after relapse, because relapse is my story, the fellowship's very much wrapped herself in about me, but that's because I came and I stayed and I put the effort in previous times. So I really enjoy listening to everybody. I'll leave it there because it's only a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Great to hear. Frankie,
Yeah.
are you wanting to keep these guys' hands up and move on with another
Yeah,
question?
I want to keep the guys' hands up. We're not going too far into this as we do with these meetings. Thank you, Lynn, Trish, Ryan, John. Thank you for what you shared. See, one of the things was it wasn't my experience as it's written in the book. I didn't get treated too well. Maybe because of my attitude, maybe because how I was, maybe how I saw it. I don't know. But with hindsight, which is a beautiful thing, looking back, one thing I took away was that not only does it say on the cards that we only keep what we have by giving it away, what I'd learned was that as I stayed in Narcotics Anonymous, there was other people coming in who were like similar to me. I'll give an example. When I came in, I was trying to get clean, like a lot of people. I didn't want to tell people that, but a lot of the time I was on not a drug of preference. I was on a drug that the doctor was giving me. I was drinking the green liquid. So, and people would come up to you and say, you got to get clean. You got to get clean, Frankie. You got to get clean. And it's like, for myself, I had to come to the realization that the only way I could get clean is with help. I had to go into a detox. I couldn't do it at home. Eventually, I had to do it at home because that's how it ended up. However, what happens with people, and I'm really mindful, when people come in and they're on Subutex or they're on some form of maintenance drug when they come in, you know, we don't want to barrage those people. They've got to be titrated and treated properly. So my experience is I've got to show love and care, not tell them you got to get clean, you got to get clean. If they could fucking just get clean, they wouldn't need to come storming into NA, would they? It's like, for me, it's like, you know, when people say to homeless people, find somewhere to fucking live. Well, if they could find somewhere to live, they wouldn't be fucking homeless, would they? You know, it's like homeless people find somewhere to live, you know, fucking, it's crazy, isn't it? So I've learned to be mindful around people, but I've also have to learn to be mindful around addicts that are now abstinent. So like moving on, for example, it says to us, recovery, you can screen share if you like, Paul. It says, recovery is what happens in our meetings. Our lives are at stake. Okay, so we know recovery happens in the meetings and our lives are at stake. Our lives are at stake is an awakening because it's taking us up towards step one. Could we have maybe the people with their hands up to share their experience when they got that magic moment when they realized, you know, this is life or death? Is that okay?
Brilliant. Yeah. Let me see. Let me just see on my screen who's first. Jericho Boys and then Joe. And then also Joe's got his hand up. Perfect. So let's just go with Jericho.
That's what happens.
Hi, my name's Kenny and I'm an addict.
Hi,
Kenny.
What it is I'm just reading this just now, right? And it says recovery is what happens at our meetings. Excuse me. I've been in here for 3.5 months, and what the recovery they're talking about in the meetings is a lot to do with me being still here in recovery, because I've got the key worker and I'm still in what is it, the step 1 and then answer 16 and all that, right? I'm right up to question 16, and I'm sure it's hard for the likes of myself, but it can be easier. But see what I'm trying to get at, right? If I was still outside there, right, I wouldn't be in recovery, but I was trying to do it on the outside anyway. But to me, I was even the guy that brought me in here, it did say he was in here and he's now 27 years clean. So I know for his answer is to say it does work. Recovery is the answer to my prayer anyway. And I'll just leave it there anyway. Thank you. Here's Conrad coming in.
Thank you, Kenny. Hi, Conrad.
Hi, my name is Conrad. I'm addict. So thank you, Paul, for chairing the meeting. Thank you, Frank, for your workshop. And what I want to say, actually, I have clean time only 5 months, maybe not only a couple of weeks ago. I just realized that every day is like a miracle. So it is 5 months, but maybe my thinking still could be wrong. And so how I can understand the recovery is what happens in our meetings. How I understand this, for me, the Zoom meetings, or I'm staying in Jericho house, so we have like this home group. Why is important for me? Because people who stay clean a few months, few years, is they since 5 months they give me hope. And I'm not the step works is not my very strong point. I'm done only about 20 questions, but I'm really love listen, share other people's, because from every single share I can take something, and every single time I remind myself some events from my past. And for me, the sharing is very powerful, and I understand it's like this. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Conrad. Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Thank you guys for sharing. Joanne, do you want to come in? Did you have a moment when you realised your life was at stake?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Frankie, for hosting the meeting. Hi, I'm Joanne, an addict. Hi, everybody. I did, Paul. You know, I first got to NA in my 30s, and I knew in myself I wasn't done with my using. You know, that obsession to use was just too much. Plus, I didn't pick up all the aspects of the programme. I didn't do what was suggested, so I was in and out. But this time round, and I don't know, I'm 46 now, back in my 30s, you know, that mortality it didn't hit me anyway, and I was only 10 years into my habits, so I'd still a lot of using to do, I think. But at the age of 46, and getting clean this year, something really clicked. And I was just willing to do everything it took this time. I was just willing to start a 1990, get a sponsor, get a home, just willing to do it all. You know, I'm all in this time. And it was just something that clicked in my mind. And I don't know if it's getting older, desperation, that gift of desperation, just 20 years of use, and I was done. I'd had enough. So I'll leave it there.
Cheers. Joe, brilliant stuff. And Joe D, can you unmute? There you go.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, man. Good to see everybody. Recovery, what happens in our meetings, our lives are at stake. For me, man, it's been a very, very long process of recovering in Narcotics Anonymous. Man, I came about 8 years ago, out of nut house, man, peed wired, in and out of jails most of my life. Quite fucking arrogant towards behaviours. No, everybody was a grass or a beast, and so I had to change my whole attitude towards things. No, all I really wanted to do was really stop taking smack. I never really fucking thought about no drinking and stuff like that, and ended up fucked with that, and ended up back on smack. And I've experienced fucking trying to take my life. I've experienced nuthousings, man. I've experienced Christian rehabs that that boy was saying, different fucking mental health tablets, different scripts, no suboxone, methadone, and always looking for that fucking answer to help us. And I never ever found it, you know what I mean? So I kind of realised now that I can never ever fucking take any drugs, you know what I mean? And my mental health, fucking life experiences, traumas, whatever you want to call it, I quite quickly fucking go right to a very, very dark place, you know what I mean? If I've not got a sort of a structure or a programme to fucking, or the therapeutic value to guide me, you know what I mean? So it's pretty evident for me that my life's at stake nowadays. You know, it's took a long, long fucking time to get where I'm at with it. And it's still difficult, you know what I mean? Recovery, what happens in the meetings. It's not just recovering for the drugs, you know, it's recovering for all that shit. It's trying to fucking change my whole behaviours and all that, and that's difficult. You know what I mean? It's very difficult, and it's so ingrained in you. And then you've got all that kind of stuff. Is it ego? Is it personality? Is it this and that? It's a total kind of conflict. So it takes a lot for it to sit down and kind of get through this all the time with different people to get your own understanding, man. So my life is if I don't come in, and I don't find it easy to say that, do you know what I mean? If I didn't have to come to NA, I wouldn't come to NA, do you know what I mean? But I need to, and I know I can't take fucking substances anymore. I know the mental health tablets don't work. I know psychiatric walls don't work. I know fucking counsellors are only good at doing a certain bit of the job, which means it has to do the rest. So, aye, man, it's a big one. I like that one at the start as well. We're searching for an answer. I've been searching for an answer fucking all my days for a very young age. You know, knowing I was an addict, I would put it down to certain circumstances. I've been in homes and what times, in prisons, and not having family around about me. And there's a lot of dynamics involved in it, but the reality is, man, I'm an addict, and if I don't fucking do this, although I do it begrudgingly a lot of the time, I'm fucked, and I'd be as well fucking deep, you know what I mean? So I'll leave it there, man. Thanks, Paul, for letting us in.
Thank you for sharing, Joe.
Yeah, see, one of the things, Paul, thanks, Paul, for that, and thanks everyone who shared. See, one of the things I want to point out, because it's not laboured enough by the treatment centres that I went to as a client and the treatment centres that I worked in, plus the NA meetings that I attend, whether they're in the UK or abroad, it's not laboured enough that when we get to that place where we have that realisation that our lives are at stake, it's the beginning of a process. And not everyone seems to get that desperation part. See, when we realise that this is more important and we start hearing these cliches in the rooms, which is like anything we put in front of our recovery, we will lose. In my experience of the 28 years of being around, that's true, I would say 80%. Most of the time, whatever we put in front of our recovery, eventually our recovery falters, and then people mess up. And when people mess up in NA, they mess up dramatically. One of the things I wanted to do was just screen share, because it hops to step 5, basically. And not step 5, I mean chapter 5. I'll just pump this up a second.
Oh, are you doing that, Frankie?
Yeah, I'm doing that, Paul.
Yeah, cool.
Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
I'll just try that again. Here we go. It should work. Right. And if it loads up, here we go. See this, if you guys can see it on chapter 5 in the basic text. What can I do? When it says the bit was highlighted, because people make fun of this. When we fully concede to our innermost self. Now, fully concede, you know, that's total surrender to our innermost self. What's my innermost self? The bit I have to be honest to, the truthful bit. Our innermost selves, that we're powerless over our addiction. Powerless means no power. You can write about the 42 questions in step 1, but whatever way you look at it, powerless over my addiction means the drugs win. I can't, you know, I can't, because I don't have any power to fight it. We've taken a big step in our recovery. Once we understand that, and I'll just stop the sharing. once we understand that, what makes it different, what makes it very, very different is it's a done deal. It's a done. We haven't even, the moral psychology is step 4 up to step 11, which we practice on to change how we think and see the world. Once we've got that bit of, I realize I'm an addict and I have to do this stuff, it's a done deal. It's very different to the person who comes in the meeting and after the person's finished sharing, they fuck off outside and have a fag. It's very different to that person. It's very different to a lot of people who they come into the meeting and they're sitting there, boyfriend and girlfriend. You're a very different person. Trust me, I've gone through all those different stages to get to a place where recovery had to be the most important thing for me, because I'm powerless. I'm powerless. Now, I have to work the program to get the power, because that's where the power is. You know, the power of the program of being around the other addicts, the literature, and their own experience, and being around like-minded people is so, so important. So, Paul, would you mind sharing the screen again, and we'll go back to that?
Sure. Can I just add something quickly? Because Joanne and I and a few others were on a basic text workshop. We're on the We Are the Basic Text group on Saturday, and we were chopping up this specific line, and Joanne got the dictionary out on fully, concede, and innermost. And by looking those words up in the dictionary, it just brought it up, gave it a whole new dimension. When I looked up,
would Joanne have the dictionary with her at the moment?
Have you got it, Joanne? Because remember,
I want to give you a different word, that's all.
Okay.
Right, so it's, hi, I'm Joe, I'm still an addict. So it says to admit or agree that something is true after first denying or resisting it. Surrender or yield.
Okay.
But there's another bit which I found quite interesting. So it says transitive verb, to acknowledge grudgingly or hesitantly. I was jumping back and forward with you two, because this time around I'm not grudgingly conceding anything you do. I just became willing. Simple as that. Total surrender. This
Thank
comes.
you.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to look up, Joanne, if you don't mind, Joe, if you don't mind, is disturbing, and the other word realisations. And if you want to change the screen, Paul.
Yeah.
There's no rush. Look at us getting all geeky.
Hold on. All right, disturbing, causing anxiety, worrying.
Okay, well, so look, from number 78 to 79, Paul, would you read those out? Would you mind? No, just 78 to 79.
Okay, we found that by putting recovery first, the program works.
Okay.
We faced 3 disturbing realizations.
Joe, could you tell us what realizations are? Well, I know we all know, but let's see what the dictionary says.
Right. The state of understanding or becoming aware of something. The act of accomplishing something planned or hoped for.
Fuck me, this gear's shit. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. You know, disturbing. You know, when something's disturbing, it rocks you to the fucking core.
Yeah.
Sorry about the swearing, but this is powerful, quite powerful stuff. 3 disturbing realizations. You know, a realization is also to wake up, isn't it? A bit like the woke generation, it's waking up. So would we take the first one again? Joe, do you want to take the lead and read the first one? Number 1, we are powerless.
We are powerless over addiction, and our lives are unmanageable.
The bit they don't tell us is, until you do the step working guide as such, is we're unmanageable around our thoughts, our feelings and emotions, and our sensations. If I sit next to someone who smells in a meeting, sometimes, if you know what I'm talking about here, the hairs on my arms can stand up and down and start doing push-ups. You know, I can start having reactions going on. you know. Would somebody like to share? Can we have two people sharing on what their experience is of this first realization, which is the quote of step one? We are powerless. Not we were, we are.
Hey, great. Okay, is that Jericho? Yeah, Jericho, Marla, and the guys. Is it you, John? Let's get you unmuted.
Hello, my name's John. I'm an addict.
Hey, John.
All the stuff I done, I was powerless. All the people I hurt, the relationships I fucked up with my son, my partners, and my parents. I didn't realise at the time that I'd nothing. Well, no, it had something to do with me, but I didn't realise I couldn't fucking control it with my addiction. It was always drugs came first. But I never took ownership of what I'd done, if you know what I mean. I always fucking blamed somebody else. Coming into recovery, I found that now I need to take responsibility if I want to get clean, and I'm responsible for all my behaviours, how I react to people, how I react to things. Even if it's nothing to do with the drugs, to find myself happy to deal with all the stuff, so that I can stay clean. Right, thanks very much. Does somebody else want to come in?
Thanks, John.
Right, I'm Ross, I'm an addict.
Hey, Ross.
See, just saying you're powerless. For me to admit that to myself was probably the first time I was truly honest with myself. So that principle, on its own honesty, is the one that I'm trying to take from recovery, because I believe all the other principles will fall into place after that if I'm just vigorously honest. I believe that's a stepping stone for everything else just to fall in place. I'll leave it there.
Lovely, Ross. Thank you. And Marla, would you like to come in?
Marla Addict. Y'all never forget discovering that I was powerless, because I made a decision not to use one day. I wound up using anyway. And I was astonished. I woke up the next morning and realized that for the first time in my life, I'd made a decision to do or not do something. I wasn't able to do it. And I decided I wasn't going to use that day and wound up using anyway. And then I woke up the next morning, and that's when I knew I was in trouble. And that's when the rubber hit the road, so to speak. I said, well, I am just not going to use today. That's it. And I wound up using anyway. And I knew I was in trouble. Long story short, 6 weeks later, I moved 2,800 miles to get away from the people that I was with so that I could start over. And then it worked for 2 years, except that one day I ran into some people and started using again. And then about a year and a half later, around mid-afternoon, I was looped, and I just decided I've got to do something different. I've got to change up. And I literally, under my own steam, walked into my first meeting. So that's my powerless story. Pass.
Thank you, Marla. Great to hear you. Ryan, Paul, and Kyle, one of you guys coming in?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Ryan. I'm an addict.
Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, I liked the last bit as well about, putting recovery first. The program works because, that's my experience has been, I have put relationships, jobs, money, cars before my recovery, and it's always resulted in a relapse. That was my story. Yeah, but going on to the we are powerless over our addiction, our lives are unmanageable. When I come into recovery, first and foremost, I had to admit to myself that I'm powerless over my disease. Disease of addiction. I'm powerless over drugs, and that was kind of easy for me to do. You know what I mean? Because I've got experience of that. Once I put a drug in me or a drink in me, I can't stop. That is my experience. So that were easy, but it does go a lot deeper than that. Powerless over people, places, things, situations, and that's been another level of surrender, if you will, for me. I've got siblings in addiction. My dad's an alcoholic. My sisters are, addicted to pills, and my brother's a full blown crackhead, and that I can't control them, and that. But there was a bit of freedom in that as well. Admitting my powerlessness over them. The only thing I've got a little bit of power over today is my choice whether to choose recovery or go back to taking drugs now. That is a choice today, as it says a bit further on, taking responsibility for my recovery. Unmanageability as well, you know, for me, it was quite evident that the outside of my life was a fucking mess. You know, it was an absolute mess. I was street homeless. I was jobless. I didn't have any family around me, you know, and people pretty much viewed me as a piece of shit. So that was pretty evident. But when I came into recovery, I started to delve a bit deeper and realised that I've been unmanageable since I was a kid, since I was a small kid. You know, I've always felt insecure. I've always felt less than. I've always felt like I didn't fit in. You know, my feelings were unmanageable. Therefore, I took drugs. You know, and the consequences of that were my life just went to shit. You know, every time, pretty much from the start when I was 12 years old, consequences came thick and fast. Prisons, you know, violence, toxic relationships. My life has always been unmanageable. I've never had any balance in my life until I came into recovery. But yeah, that's kind of what came out in my head when I read that. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. But sorry, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, to add to that, be careful, because there is a bit of a trap that can happen. What I realized, especially when I was doing groups or in meetings, what happens is, for some reason, due to people pleasing, which is dishonesty in its nature, the exact nature of people pleasing is dishonesty. What we can do is endorse each other's bullshit, even when we know it's not right. And that's my experience from sitting watching other addicts and also being involved myself. For example, if I'm in prison, if I'm in treatment, if I'm in a shit relationship, I can make all these different rationalizations, but they are consequences of being powerless. They're not powerless. They're the consequence of being powerless. And please think long and deeply about that, because when someone tells you that they're powerless and they've ended up in prison, that's the consequence of being powerless. Being powerless is what they did before they got there. Okay, being powerless is the thought process they went through before they got there. So, and the only examples we have is to reflect on our own examples. You know, somebody said it, I think it was Ryan just now said it, you know, or it could have been John. I plan to do one thing and I go and do something else. I think Marla said that. She summed that up really well, because we have no defense. We have nothing. You know, if we come into NA and we're an addict, and when we come in, we attend meetings. If we're an addict, it's just the clock's ticking for us. The minute we meet that nice guy or that nice girl, or the minute we around someone who really has that, you know, cheese or something like that, or they're, you know, they've got something that we really like the smell of or the look of, you know, whether it's the Turkish or something, you know, or the Red Seal, or I'm trying to use addict terminology here because there's lots of people who don't necessarily use the terminology, just to validate so you guys can identify. Yeah. See, there's lots of that kind of stuff that goes on and we can endorse each other, but being powerless over our addiction is different than being powerless over, you know, over the substance or over the situation. That's why from step 4, because as we move on with this workshop, we'll start moving further up the steps. From step 4 to step 11 is the moral psychology that we need to address. But if we're an addict and we come to meetings and we don't do anything, the clock's ticking until our next catastrophe, basically. And sometimes we don't survive relapses. And you can't scare addicts, so it doesn't matter really what we say. You can't scare an addict. You know, it's impossible, you know. Yeah, so the next one is number 2, Paul, if you don't mind bringing it up. Can we only highlight up into the comma, please? Although we're not responsible for our disease. And of course, we always have this question, if we can have 4 people for 2 minutes on this one, why are we not responsible for our disease? Is it nature? Is it nurture? You know, why are we not It's got to be someone's fault, right? Whose fault is it?
Vincent, did you want to come in on that? Because I saw you had your hand up there, and we rarely get to hear from you because you're always got your camera off. It's great to see you. You don't have to.
No, I appreciate it. My name is Vincent. I'm an addict, and thank you for taking this meeting. This is a really fascinating meeting. I've learned a new term about myself. I've become a shy sharer, apparently, when I'm in the UK on Zoom. But that last question and this question speaks to me directly. I am a person that had 25 years in recovery, working a program, and I relapsed. I gave it away, and it was not a choice. I was injured, and I was given a medication that I did not know was addictive, but my body did, and I am powerless over my disease. And it took me 3 years to find my way back into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. And that was by the grace of a higher power, because when I was in my disease, full blown, living at an animalistic level, once again, I didn't want to come back. I wanted to die. And the good news is that there's an upside to being powerless. Working a program on a daily basis, I don't know about anyone else, but when I was using, I used against my will. I would wake up, not choose to use, but I still ended up using. And in recovery, I can recover against my will. There are times in which lying, cheating, and stealing seems like a good idea, a good opportunity, but because I work a program, attempt to work a program, sometimes more likely than not, I choose not to, and I'm powerless over recovery now, which is a beautiful thing. So that's just my take. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Vincent. Lovely to hear from you. And Joe, do you have a take on this? We're not responsible for our disease.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Joe. I'm still an addict. Right. So I come from a family who is they're riddled with addiction. You know, my mum was an alcoholic, my gran was an alcoholic, addicts. You know, because alcohol is a drug. All my aunties, my uncles, my sisters in the madness. My brother likes a drink. That versus getting brought up in all the chaos that I was brought up in, riddled with fear, violence, you know, so I don't know where that stems. Was I born an addict? Was I an addict in the womb, or am I an addict because I was brought up with all that violence and all that chaos? That, you know, like Frankie says, is it nature or nurture? So yeah, thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Joe. Great to hear you. And then we've got back to, I think, let me get this right, because I was getting people mixed up yesterday, and they don't, addicts don't like you when they call. It's you, John. Good. And then Nikolai.
Similarly, but I didn't understand the question at the start there. Then I kind of identified when I heard Joe sharing. I was brought up in my mother and father were alcoholics and all. Was brought up in 2 housing schemes in Glasgow, and when everybody's mind I like to wee drink, and most days that grew up and were on to crime and violence, but most days ended up addicts. That's my take on it. Somebody else want to come in, Paul?
Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Paddy. I'm an addict.
Hey, Paddy.
Hi. Well, some of the stuff that I've been learning about what could be responsible for the disease, but I'm not saying it's everything, but a lot of people talk about childhood trauma and adverse childhood events. So just really what Joe was saying, and other things like poverty and all that, and things that you should have got that you never got, and just all the different adverse experiences all adding up, and it could be that as well. Leave it there, thanks.
Nice one, Paddy. Great to hear you. And Nikolai, would you come in, please?
Sure. Nikolai addict. I too am a really shy sharer, but yeah, I think with when it comes to the disease and that, I can get really lost on trying to figure out that whole part. I think I can just really kind of snowball and try to, you know, really get lost in trying to find out why I'm an addict, what, you know, whatever. But I think it's just important to realize for me the second part of this statement, which I guess I should have raised my hand for that second part. But I can just get really lost in trying to figure out, well, you know, where this disease comes from and all that stuff. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Nikolai. Let's just hold it there. Anwar and Alex, keep your hands up. Frankie's coming in with another question.
Cool. Thank you, Paul. Yeah,
Fully considered addict called Anwar. Hi, family.
2 seconds, Anwar. Hang on a second. Frankie's just going to keep your hand up. Just take a pause there. Okay. Frankie's just coming in with another question.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Anwar, for being patient. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Just think along the lines of this, because it's not an exact science, this. Okay, we know that the disease of addiction is made up from its obsession of the mind, its compulsion of the body. We also know there's a spiritual self-centeredness for some of us, okay, which is it's all about me. And there's the other side of it as well, which our coffee maker, Vincent, made very clear that there's the allergy side of it. If you want to see some deeper parts of that, look on page 5 of the basic text. At the bottom of it, it'll explain it to you very clearly there, what our illness is. You know, our reaction to the drugs is what makes us addicts. Also, once the drugs have been removed, our brains have been warped by mind-altering chemicals. You know, our brains have been altered. So there's a lot to it, because rich people who come from very wealthy backgrounds, who are loved and brought up, still become addicts. You know, it's not just poor people from the ghetto, so to speak. You know, we're not necessarily become addicts because we've had trauma, but all of these can help. For example, I'll share some of my own personal experience. My 2 parents didn't drink. They were very busy with their working lives. There was a lot of emotions and feelings were not passed over, because they were second generation people brought up during the war who didn't have parents to share emotions and feelings with them. So it's all part of it. I also have that thing that Vincent has. I have to be very careful when I take medication. I have to be very careful around Nurofen Plus, any of those Solvadine, Max, all of those drugs. I have to be very careful, because they solve a problem very quickly and they become easy to take. So I have to be responsible for my recovery. So the next question, which leading on to, is we are responsible for our recovery. The second half of the disturbing realization. This is disturbing for us. We have to take ownership. We're responsible for our recovery. Can you guys let us know how you manage this, how you do this? Should we have 4 people, Paul?
Sure. Anwar, would you like to come in
2
now?
minutes,
Thanks.
please.
Thanks for waiting. 2 minutes each, guys.
Hi, Paul. I'm going to keep it very short for the time. Fully considered addict called Anwar. Hi, family. Although we are not responsible for our disease, it's a very deep one, and it's been mind-boggling for some time. But listening to a lot of our members, and obviously some psychologists, I know for sure it's not genetically inherited or anything. And I wasn't born an addict, but what I've come to understand is like all of us have like a SIM card, but in order for the SIM card to work, it needs to be loaded with some airtime. So my disease was activated when I took my first mind and mood altering substance, you know, so where it comes from and all of that. And I like what Frankie said, that even rich people with proper upbringings and they never had violence and traumatic experiences and all of that, But yeah, I guess the predisposition to substances, yeah, and I'm not responsible for that. Neither is my parents, neither is the environment, neither is whoever. But the other half of that part speaks about I am responsible for seeing and finding out how do I get help for this, and how do I put in the effort to work on the help that has been offered. And that's where the part where I am responsible for my recovery. You know, I never chose to do all the stuff I did. I didn't choose like I want to go to rehab and I want to just be involved in substances and catch on a whole lot of nonsense and destroy family lives and lose my jobs and all of that. But I did come to a point where I realized I don't want that anymore. And that's where the responsible for my recovery came in, where I needed to, you know, give in and ask for help and follow suggestions and ask for, you know, when you ask for and when you ask somebody for advice, you better take the advice, you know. Then if you're not wanting to take the advice, then why ask for it? But yeah, that's my 5 cents when it comes to, although we are not responsible for the disease, but we are responsible for our recovery. Doesn't matter the disease. What matters, what's more important is how do I get better from it. So yeah, thanks Paul, thanks Frankie, thanks everybody, awesome meeting.
Thanks, Anwar. And as a founder member of this Monday night meeting, it's great to see you back after some time. You were with us right at the beginning. Okay, Alex, you're up. Come on down, Alex.
I'm an addict. My name's Alex. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Frankie. All the other people. Nice to see you both. Right. Keep it simple. I know you hate that, Paul. Keep it simple. Right. Narcotics Anonymous has given me back my responsibility. Okay. Narcotics Anonymous has stripped away all the denial, all the bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I am now in a place where I am able to be responsible. That's the first thing. Okay. You've taken away the bullshit. How can I be responsible? Now you can put a meeting on and you can pass a glorious message, the glorious message. But my responsibility is to sit my arse in front of the computer and listen to it. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is to turn up and to be listened. You can sit there and talk all night, and if I'm not here, I ain't going to hear it. So that's the first part of my responsibility, is being present, taking part. The second part of my responsibility is, now that I have knowledge, now that the denial has been stripped away, and I know that going into Woolworths and shoplifting, I know it's an outside thing, but I know that Woolworths and going into shoplifting is not a particularly clever thing to do. So my responsibility is, when I walk through Woolworths, I keep my hands in my pockets. That's my responsibility. I've been given the responsibility. It's a gift. And my responsibility is to behave with it. My responsibility in many cases is not to do things. You know, my responsibility is to go to places and listen to recovery. You know, that's my responsibility, is the ongoing journey. Narcotics Anonymous cannot carry me. Narcotics Anonymous can lead me. Having had can lead me, not carry me. My responsibility is the foot recovery. You do the little walking footsteps behind you all and see where you're all going, because it looks like a healthy place to be. That's my responsibility. You know, my responsibility is to do the leg work, the footwork, and sometimes keeping the hands in the pockets in the shop work. Those are my responsibilities. Did I do 2 minutes? Love you all.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for your take on that. That's brilliant. And John?
Right, thank you. It's my responsibility now that I've read the basic text, and I know that I've got a disease, and I know a relapse starts with my attitudes and my behaviours, and when I'm not practising the steps, and I'm not doing the spiritual principles, and if I can feel my my mind gone, and some of that stuff slipping. I know that I need to pick up the phone and share my thoughts. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Paul. The next 3 lines, Paul, they're gonna be our questions. The next 3 lines, we'll do one at a time, I would say. So if we could have 2 people on each line to share experience. For example, number 3, we can no longer blame people, places, and things for our addiction. I always blame someone else. I blame the government for sending me a gyro, because every time I got a gyro, I went and used, even when I hadn't used for 3 days. You know, they kept giving me money. You know, so I always needed someone to blame. Any examples? Because we can't, it says we no longer can blame people, places, and things. But can we have some examples so we can have some identification?
Ryan, is that you coming in? Great.
Yeah, cheers, thank you. I'm Ryan, I'm an addict.
Right.
Thanks for the meeting. I like what everyone said as well. It's always good to get a different perspective on things. Yeah, I mean, coming into I'm in a treatment centre right now, and you know, when I first came into recovery, I relapsed when I was about 3.5 years in, and it was all down to starting to blame other people again, because in that I got resentful. You know, I started to blame the meetings, I started to blame people for how I was feeling, you know, and just like the bloke shared previously, you know, I expected people to fucking fall in line and do as I say, and the world to be in Ryan's control. And when it wasn't, that was a painful place to be in, you know. Like I said, it sparked resentment in me. I fell out with people, you know, and like I said, because I was in recovery, it was a deeper level. It wasn't about using drugs anymore. It was pretty much about my thoughts and my feelings and getting through day-to-day life and getting on with people. And that, you know, being in that state of mind, it wasn't possible for me. And I couldn't face my problems or my feelings. I was too busy pointing the finger at everyone else. And ultimately, I relapsed, you know, and I didn't reach out. I didn't reach out to a recovering addict, and I picked up again, you know. It's not like that today. You know, I do have bad days, but, you know, I pretty much like to let people, they're going to do what they're going to do. Again, it's another form of powerlessness, you know. I'm powerless over people, places, and things, you know. And I can't blame them for my behaviour. You know, I can't blame them and use them as a reason for me to go back drinking. It's like me fucking giving up on life and saying, you know, drink's the answer when I know full well it's not. That doesn't mean I don't get in that pattern again. I do blame people some days, and it's tough. But that's when I find myself in that pain, I find myself reaching out now, and that's the difference. Again, someone else, spiritual principles. You know, I struggle practicing them on a daily basis, man. But I'm willing, and I do try to the best of my ability. As it says, the ultimate weapon for recovery is the recovering addict, you know, and it is, you know, and I gravitate towards people who are, you know, quite humble and everything, the opposite of what I am, you know what I mean? But I found in blaming people, like being in a treatment centre, there's 12 of us who live in here, and it can be quite difficult at times, especially when I first came in, because I was full of ego, I was full of self, you know, I was controlling. All the defects of character were ingrained in me, you know, and I was a bit of a prick to be around, because if people didn't do what I wanted them to do or act the way I wanted them to act, you know, I'd fall out with them. But the only person that ever hurt was me, you know, so it makes a lot of sense. It's another surrender for me. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it tonight. We're going to have to get going in a minute, guys, because there's people coming back and such, but we will definitely be coming on here again. I've really enjoyed it, and I've taken a lot from it.
Cheers, guys. It's been good to have you here. Fantastic. Thanks, guys, Ryan, for sharing. Joe, would you like to come in?
Oh, here we go.
We
Oh,
can hear
you hear
you.
me?
Yes.
All right, cheers, thanks for that. I like that one, me, Paul. We can no longer blame people. See, I've always, I blame my mum for the way I've been, you know what I mean, through addiction by putting me in a children's home, you know, and all that, you know, but I can't blame her today because I've got to blame myself. I don't blame her for the time I robbed my kids on Christmas Eve, you know what I mean, when I staged a breaking. That was my addiction. That was me. I wanted my alcohol, you know what I mean? That was me. And when I got my face smashed in off that guy, I was blaming him, but then I've got to sit back and realise is I had a part in him why he stayed in my house, a part why I got done over, you know. So it's I can't blame anyone for what I've done and my thing. It's all down to me. It's what I have, it's what I've become, you know. So that's what I got anyway. Cheers, Paul.
Amazing, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Paul, can I just, before we go to Louise, can I just say, Joe, thank you for sharing a living example. It's really, really important, you know, because what happens with a lot of the treatment stuff is we'll talk about ego and we'll talk about self-centeredness, but a bit like Alex shared earlier with Sainsbury's, was it Sainsbury's or was it Pick a Mix, Marxism? That's how fucked up my head
Woolworths, wasn't it?
Woolworths, that's it. Woolworths shoplifting, probably the penultimate arrest, isn't it? From the Pick and Mix. We've all been there. Well, I have. You know, it's that thing of thank you, Joe. A living experience is something that we actually did and was real, as opposed to talking in a broad way. So thank you. Over to Louise.
Okay, Louise, you're up.
Hi there, can you hear me okay? I've been having problems with my phone all day.
It's crackly, but let's try.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly say, like, places, people and things and that. Like, I always used to blame my mum and, like, blame my mental health and, like, blame was everything else and never really took responsibility. But nowadays, I'm learning to take responsibility and I'm learning, like, to talk about things. And I'm learning to pick up the phone and that and speak to people and that. And I well done to everybody in the treatment centre and that. And I stick in there, guys. And thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Louise. That's a great one, isn't it? You know, that's a new one that's kind of crept along in the past 10 years, where people with their we focus on our mental health these days, and a lot of celebrities talk about their mental health. Well, we still have to take responsibility. Thanks, Louise. We still have to take responsibility for, you know, our recovery. What we'll do is, because we've got 10 minutes left. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah.
We've got 10 minutes left. Can we, Joe, would you mind looking up the word concentrate? Thanks, Joe. And then we'll go on to line number 82 on there, which was, we concentrate on recovery and feelings, not what we have done in the past.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm still an addict. So concentrate, focus all one's attention on a particular object or activity.
Thanks, Joe. Now that now reads differently. It does to me, someone who didn't have an education. So concentrate, as Joe read it from the dictionary, how I heard it, was to focus absolutely every part of my thinking on what's about to be said. We concentrate on recovery and feelings, not what we have done in the past. That's a clue there to sharing, because we'll hear a lot of people always talk about yesterday, you know, and we'll hear that thing about, you know, yesterday was history, you know, tomorrow is a mystery, all we've got is the gift, which is the present, you know. These are lovely, waxing lyrical, but, you know, thanks for that, Joe. You know, we concentrate on our recovery and feelings, not what we have done in the past. Can we have a couple of hands up to give us their interpretations of that sentence, please? And please keep it simple.
Jericho.
I'm Ross, I'm an addict. What I take for that is, if I concentrate on the past too much, I'm not living in the day, which means I can't practice the principles to help me recover. So it's just for me, it's just about keeping me in the day, dealing with my feelings during that day, and practicing the principles to help me. I'll leave it there. Cheers.
Thank you, Ross. Louise. Are you there, Louise? I think you're gone. Okay. Anyone else want to come in? We concentrate on recovery and feelings. Joe.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Joe. I'm an addict. So yeah, I had to ditch the guilt and shame because it was keeping me stuck. You know, it was getting me nowhere. And as a parent, that's difficult. Because everything I'd done in my addiction, I hurt my son. And I never, ever thought I could really ditch that guilt, but it really was a conscious choice. I wasn't, and he forgave me, you know, he told me to ditch it. You know, it was not serving me. It was keeping me stuck in a place, and I was never going to get recovery. So I think that was the biggest one for me, was getting rid of that guilt and shame and moving forward. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joe.
Joe. Paul, do you mind if I screen share?
You can override this anytime.
Can I? Okay.
I'll stop it anyway.
Right, okay. Right. As my one comes up, because this is the last now, because it's 20:38 and we're finishing in 5 minutes. So this is where we're going to end it. So as we were saying, the ultimate weapon, you can see that it's coming up.
Yeah.
The recovery is the recovering addict. Okay, so it's one addict helping, another is without parallel. We concentrate on recovery and feelings, not what we have done in the past. Okay, the next bit, old friends, places and ideas are often a threat to our recovery. You know, going back and seeing the dealer and telling him you've recovered, not a good idea. Going back and trying to show off to your friends, drop them out, their history, they're gone. We're going to move forward. You know, we've got a new family, it's called NA, you know. And then, as it says in here, this last one, we need to change our playmates and playthings, and playgrounds and playthings. In other words, what it means is we have to change everything. Going back to where we were before, I grew up, the local football team for me was Arsenal, and I didn't like football. But I used if Arsenal won, and I used if Arsenal lost. You know, I'll blame something that was external to me for my internal feelings. So I have to change my feelings. And part of the way we do this is we have to change the people we hang out with, what we do for fun, and, you know, and their playthings, you know. We have to do things differently. So I strongly suggest, from someone like me who's got 19 years of abstinence and over 28 years now of attending NA, that you go and save up your money and get yourself a passport, change your outlook, try listening to some different music, and remember, what you put in, you get out. So start eating well, having good attitude, because it all pays out in the long run, in my personal from what I've seen from other members. Paul, would you like to have a couple of people come in who haven't shared, who would like to perhaps give some things around what they've had to change to be in recovery? Can we stick to some people who haven't shared?
Yeah,
give some others a chance.
Good idea. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken tonight would like to just come in, not put pressure on anyone, on what you've had to do to change, what kind of dramatic steps you've had to, a bit more than modifications. Anyone? You got someone in Jericho that hasn't shared?
We can always pick on Matt.
Matt?
We normally get Margaret in at the end of
Alright.
the workshop.
Hey.
Hello here, what you wanting?
What are we
It's about
wanting?
what if I needed to change.
Yeah.
I needed to change like how I react to people, or preferably not react at all. Do you know what I mean? Because that's my whole life is fucking got me into a problem. Like someone says something to me, I do. Everyone's fucking thinking of what will happen if I don't react to this person. All that kind of think I'm a bam. Do you know what I mean? Then I react and I get myself into trouble. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm a bit of a boy syndrome, as well as like letting fear dictate what I do and don't do. Do you know what I mean? I'll let fear stand in the way of what I want to do because of what I think other people will think of me about doing what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking mental, man. And my attitude that like fucking I can do this shit on my own. Do you know what I mean? No, it's weak to ask for help. Like, and I'm still not the best of that, but I'm getting a lot better putting a hand out. Do you know what I mean? The attitude that like if I see someone struggling, I'll rip into them. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I've done my whole using, man. I just start taking drugs, looking for weaknesses in people to tear into them. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how I built up my self-esteem, man. So I need to change all that, right? But seeing the wee reading there, it's talking about changing ideas, like people, places, and ideas. It's the ideas, man. That's why I need to change the people. And it's kind of apt to where I am because I'm leaving this rehab tomorrow, And like after 18 months, I can like I've got family that kind of still using. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't believe in a abstinence-based program, and that could be dangerous for me. Do you know what I mean? Because I love them. I love the guy. Do you know what I mean? And like we've been tight our whole lives, but like I'm going to have to do what I'm going to have to do because I need to do what's right for me for a change. Yeah, but I'll leave that there. Thanks.
Thanks, mate. What's your name?
All right, I'm Adam. Frankie here,
Hey,
right?
madam.
I can hijack this, right? You said something a few weeks ago, right? And you're like, don't concentrate so much on the spiritual principles, but concentrate on the principles. What did you mean?
Well, in recovery, we like to stick spiritual in front of things. It's still the same principles.
But I just
It doesn't matter if we stick principle in front of spiritual. It's still the fucking same.
This is Frankie's stuff he's putting on. You're just taking the completely dismiss that, Adam.
Right, cool.
Adam, thanks so much and good luck with that. What I used to say to people when they used to say to me, go on, you can have a drink. I used to ask them, put them on the spot, and say to them, why do you want to make me sick? It makes me sick to have a drink. Why do you want to make me sick? There's loads of different defense we have to do because they don't understand and we do. So it's quite important. So good luck, Adam.
Good luck, Adam.
Spiritual principles. Spiritual is just something that, we know inside internally, whether it's right or wrong. So next.
Got you, Ross. I got that message, so we'll get that into you definitely. Tomorrow I'll probably send it, so you'll get it. You'll get the day after. Anyone else? That's us at 1:45, mind you, Frankie. If you want to.
Okay. If nobody else wants to jump in, Joe, would you like to contribute something? We'll put you on the spot a few times today. Thanks for being our dictionary person. Come on. No, okay. Right, brilliant. Look, thanks everyone for a wonderful meeting. It's been great tonight. I hope you guys understand I played devil's advocate for a lot of it, and the idea is to make us think. And if you can think about, what's the difference between being powerless over alcohol, what's powerless over our addiction. It's part of the road to it, and the other part in summing up, doing the Jerry Springer bit here is, that when we fully concede to our innermost self, it's a done deal. We know. No one else has to tell us. It's not up for negotiation anymore, and it doesn't matter what educated person or what other person in our family, whatever, says. We know that we have something wrong with us, and we have to do something about it. That's where the steps can come and help. And everything else we can do. everything else we can do to try and make our lives better. And of course, if we get well, everyone else around us starts to get well. And there's a big thing as well, what I found with my family was that the more well I got, the more my family didn't like me. That was a real big difficult part to deal with. But that's a whole workshop in itself. So just putting it out there. Thanks, everyone. Paul, thank you. Paul, you got to sum it up? I'm finished.
No, I'd just like to really thank you, Frankie. You know, Frankie's, as he said, 19 years in this program doing consistent service and isn't officially a home group member here, but gives up his time on the first Monday of every month to come and share his experience with, which I've been fortunate to have since about 2017 when I was stalking him at conventions and such like, because I was so drawn to what he said and how he put it across, you know, and sometimes it's not what people say, it's the way they say it, you know, well, for me anyway. So I just want to thank you, Frankie.
That's one last thing I forgot to say. I got distracted. Yeah, Adam distracted me, mate. What I was going to say was my sponsor, Mickey, he's 38 years. He got prescribed some tramadol. He's in America, and his sponsor, Bob, who's not alive anymore, said to him, Mick, he said, are you getting someone to look after your tablets for you and hand them to you? And Mickey turned around and said, fuck off, Bob. I'm 38 years clean. I don't have a problem with tramadol. And Bob, who had a lot more time than him and is one of the founders of the program, turned around and said, it's not that you don't have a problem with tramadol, Mick. The reason you pass your tramadol to me and I'll give them to you as prescribed is so you don't get a fucking problem. And they're people who are 45 and 38 years. We're powerless over our addiction. We get some power from coming in, but we still have to be careful. You know, he's gone now. I'm really pleased Vincent shared what he did. I'm really grateful for that, you know, because we have to be vigilant. Look it up in the just for today, 1st of January. We have to be vigilant.
Amazing, Frankie. Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you to everyone for being here. Teresa, if you want to just hang on for a second at the end of the meeting, maybe we can get you connected with some numbers and some women, etc. And I think we've just got the just for today. Would the Jericho boys do the honors just to give us some extra power? Oh, we've got We Do Recover first. Who would like to do that one? Marla, I'm looking at you.
Sorry, Paul, it was Lynn that had her hand up at the beginning.
Is Lynn still here?
Yeah, she's still
here.
All
right, okay, Lynn, sorry, I thought you'd gone. Brilliant, Lynn. Sorry, Marla. Sorry, Nikolai. Nikolai, would you come in and do that one for us? Just got you on
No
mute.
problem. Nikolai Addict. We do recover. When at the end of the road we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs, we all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be this alternative: either go on as best we can to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or find a new way to live. In years gone by, very few addicts ever had this last choice. Those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proving itself in the lives of many addicts. It is available to us all. This is a simple spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous.
Beautiful, Nikolai. Thank you so much. And then over to the Jericho boys. Mind the police don't come knocking tonight with all the noise.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm an addict.
Hi, Adam.
Just for today, tell yourself.
Just for today!
My thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs.
Just for today!
I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me.
Just for today!
I will have a program. I will try to follow it to the best of my ability.
Just for today!
Through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life.
Just for today!
I will be unafraid. My thoughts will be on my new associations, people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. So long as I call that way, I have nothing to fear.
Brilliant, Adam. Well done, and good luck for leaving. And please share your number if you're not on the WhatsApp group already, and get connected.
Yeah, Adam, remember to respond. Don't react. Just respond, mate.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And can I remind everyone of our 12th tradition, who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, please let it stay here. Excuse me. Right. We need someone to close the meeting. Margaret, you've been awfully quiet this evening. Would you do the honours? We close the meeting with in the usual way with the Serenity prayer, and let's change the settings and everyone can join in.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I'm Margaret, I'm an addict. Can we take a minute to think of the still suffering addict and the children who are caught in the middle of it? Using the word as we understand it, God.
God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Keep coming back. Thank you, Frankie, Paul, Matt. Thanks very much, everybody.
Bye. Everyone. See you later, Coco.